Hello, I'm Sharon Weiser Ferguson, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to an Israel Museum gallery that I'm sure many of you know well, our display of Hanukkah lamps. As you can see, the variety of lamps is vast, since there are no instructions regarding the design of a Hanukkah lamp, apart from some basic religious parameters. The shape of the lamps has always been influenced by local style, while their ornamentation naturally referred to the temple or to the miracle of the oil that lasted for 8 days. In many cases, the architectural shape of the lamp alludes to the temple, as you can see here in this lamp from Germany, or this lamp from Italy. I will now show you some lamps from our collection that are not on display. They're all from the 20th or the 21st century, and we shall see how Zionism on the one hand and contemporary design on the other hand influenced the shape of Hanukkah lamps over the course of a century. This lamp is from Bezalel School, founded by Boris Schatz in 1906. Its shape resembles traditional 19th century Hanukkah lamps, but like most pieces from this school, it also carries a Zionist message. As you can see, the medallions on the backplate of the lamp have symbols that are tied directly to the story of Hanukkah: a 7-branched menorah, the temple, a small jug for oil, but their images, as well as those that are here at the bottom, were inspired by ancient Judean coins that had been discovered in archaeological excavations. The idea was to recall the material evidence that emphasized the age-old connection between the Jewish practice of lighting Hanukkah candles and the land itself. In the early years of the 20th century, the connection between the people and the land was relatively subtle, but it became very clear with the founding of the State of Israel. As with the Bezalel lamp, local makers of ceremonial and decorative objects sometimes aimed at a deliberately ancient design. For example, this Hanukkah lamp from the 1950s was meant to resemble an oil lamp found in an archaeological dig. It even has an artificial green patina, which was a common touch in many of the modern objects made at the time. The Hebrew verse written on the lamp, "And the jug of oil will not run dry," from the Book of Kings, is a reminder of another miracle performed by Elijah the prophet. What is also interesting about this piece is that it is not really functional. In theory, you could use it with great difficulty. However, the main purpose was to buy an item that reflected your Zionist ideology and declare yourself as a supporter of the State of Israel, even if the item would just be decorative without ever being used. In some pieces that were made in the 1950s and 1960s, the historical story is no longer the issue. If 18th or 19th century Hanukkah lamps sometimes had depictions of the high priest lighting the temple menorah, here you see the hero holding the lamp, and he represents the typical Israeli wearing shorts and the emblematic kova tembel hat. He's holding the Hanukkah lamp here on the map of Israel, and the Hanukkah lamp is planted in Jerusalem. A small number 10 appears on his shirt, since the lamp celebrates Israel's 10th anniversary. This lamp depicts a meeting between the Maccabees and the Israelis as equals in Jerusalem. The Zionist movement searched for Jewish heroes, and the Maccabees, who fought against cultural and religious oppression, were such heroes. In the 20th century, they became a symbol of national Jewish revival and independence. Hanukkah became a holiday that celebrated the new Jewish identity. In this lamp, made in 1967 after the Six-Day War, the designer clearly equates the Maccabees and the Israelis, focusing on the human struggle rather than the divine miracle. The two groups meet at the walls of Jerusalem. We see here the Israeli soldier leading the group, which is made up of a farmer, a mother and child, the new generation, and a man holding a scroll, the Torah scroll. that represents the connection to the Bible and to the past. They all carry torches, which reminds every Israeli of a popular song about the Zionists who carry torches in dark nights and find light not with God's help, but through hard labor. This Hanukkah lamp was probably designed for the many tourists that came to visit Jerusalem after the war when the city was reunited, as you can see from the inscription, Jerusalem, in English. And if we're talking about Israeli soldiers as the new Maccabees, this is an interesting lamp that was made by soldiers using a handle of a rifle and decorating it with IDF symbols. It is like a concrete expression of the prophet's words, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, which were sometimes inscribed on this type of lamp. During the same period, there were designers who created objects of artistic quality that were completely different in style. This Hanukkah lamp was made in the 1960s, but its style came from another period. You can see the smooth, flowing lines, the shiny silver. There are no symbols or added decorations. This is the modern international style that we sometimes identify as Bauhaus. The lamp was designed by David Heinz Gumbel, who trained as a silversmith in Germany and came to the land of Israel in 1936. The minimalist style that he had studied was not only fashionable then, but also seemed the most appropriate for a country in the making and its modern spirit. So although one may wonder if there might not be a little problem with adopting the international style for Hanukkah, many designers followed in the footsteps of David Gumbel and his colleagues. This lamp is not only beautiful, but also very functional. It is easy to light it using oil or candles, and it may be taken apart easily for cleaning. Modernist style remains very popular with silversmiths in Israel and abroad. One of the best-known artists who designed Judaica in this style was Zelig Segal, a student of Gumbel. We can see how his Hanukkah lamp from 1993 is even simpler and more minimalist than Gumbel's. It is completely different from the traditional formed lamps, and it also gives the user the opportunity to be involved in altering its shape. The lamp simply consists of 2 bars, each notched with 8 semicircular openings. The bars are made to slide so that the number of round holes can be increased day after day as an additional Hanukkah candle is lit. Segal design creates a lamp reduced to its most essential elements. Segal said that the 2 incomplete halves are in remembrance of the destruction of the temple, and they will be united when the Messiah comes. It is interesting how he can still remind us of the temple even in such basic and modern piece. Around the same time that Zelig Segal made this Hanukkah lamp in Jerusalem, Peter Shire, an American sculptor and designer, made this Hanukkah lamp in Los Angeles. Shire made a few Hanukkah lamps, and this one is the smaller, more conventional one. As you can see, there is no real connection to the Hanukkah story, except perhaps it's very festive. In the early 1990s, Shire was a member of the Milan-based Memphis Group, an international collective that aimed to open up a conversation about the relationship between art and design. So again, we see the influence of international design, and although their anti-modernist style seemed very radical and rebellious in the 90s, today the influence of this postmodern approach can be seen everywhere. Many Hanukkah lamps are colorful and playful and are made from plastic, enamel, or other new materials that have not been used in ceremonial objects in the past. The 21st century brought a more personal expression in design and also in the design of Jewish ceremonial objects. In 2004, Israel Dahan designed this Hanukkah lamp that sticks to the window using magnets. The little receptacles of oil in Dahan's lamp are connected by chains that together form the shape of the menorah. Even though these chains are made of silver, the design comes from the simple chain that soldiers wear around their neck to carry their ID tags. The shape of the receptacles comes from hanging oil lamps that the designer remembers from Morocco, where he was born, and the glass cups in which his mother would light Shabbat candles. So Dahan brings himself, his past, his identity to a very innovative design concept. Thank you for listening. I hope that no matter which sort of Hanukkah lamp you may be lighting this year, you will have a happy and a healthy holiday.